I'm Scott Odd, and this is Bill Whittle now with Bill's hot takes on current events. Bill, there's a story in the Washington Post that I've actually been preciously holding on to for the last couple of weeks. It's been out about a week and a half or so because I really wanted to get your take on this. Under the headline American Paradox, the Washington Post says voters say that they are tired of the anger and polarization emanating from Washington. They say they crave compromise. And yet, these same voters view the rival party with disdain and frequently punish politicians for reaching across partisan lines. Bill, one of the questions that arose in that story is, how do you deal with friends and family that are constantly posting things online that are not accurate or that go blatantly against what you believe? And the implied question there includes in that question the implication of how do you do that without becoming angry at the people you're trying to settle down?
So here comes an answer that's going to go right to the divisiveness thing and make things worse. And that's not my intention. But ultimately, Scotty, the determinant of every answer I give on this show and everything I say and everything I do is got to be based on what I perceive to be the actual truth and not the way I'd like the truth to be. So I want to say it's been my experience, and I mean my overwhelming experience with any number of my friends, associates, and so on, that this is not an exactly two-way street. In other words, we all have friends and family members who are Democrats, and so many of us had friends and Democrats who family members who were just super jazzed about Barack Obama, thought he was great, and the number of times that I have seen conservatives tell liberals to just shove off it exists, but it's relatively small. But I have heard endless stories of sisters and family members and people who were bridesmaids at the other woman's wedding, 40 years ago, and she finds out she voted for Donald Trump, the bridesmaid did, and she gets a call saying, "You're dead to me." That's it. You voted for Trump, you're dead to me. I've had this experience with my own relatives. My experience with my own relatives has been, I went to Thanksgiving. I don't go anymore. And they would start the poking. And then I had a choice of three responses. I could either take it and just, shut up and nod my head, or I could just not come in and expose myself to this anymore, or I could pull out the rhetorical guns and leave them all on the floor in a cloud of gun smoke. And that is not something I particularly wanted to do with my family. So the sad truth of the matter is that several years ago, I want to say 5, 6 years ago, there were 2 or 3 Thanksgivings in a row for me that were made increasingly unpleasant by people who I'd done a lot for when I didn't have the means to do a lot for anybody. And the treatment that I got in a passive aggressive way was so disgusting to me that I just decided the best choice is just to not go back. So I haven't. I think there are 2 reasons for this kind of imbalance that I think most of our viewers would certainly agree is there, in terms of the number of Democrats who say, "That's it, you're a Republican, you're dead to me," versus the inverse. One of them is that Republicans and conservatives have to hear what the Democrats think all day. We have to hear it all day. We hear it we have to, late night comedy and on the news, and everything is colored blue. And we're used to looking at the world through blue colored glasses. And it's not a shock to us to hear people saying things like Hillary Clinton didn't do anything wrong. The second part of the equation is that for the left to survive, they not only have to tell a consistent narrative, but they have to make sure that no one is telling a counter narrative. Because if you're telling a counter narrative and you put some facts down, then you're going to cause the one situation that the left can't really handle, and that is that people will start thinking about things and maybe come to their own independent decisions, and that's simply not allowed. And by the way, Scott, looking back on everything from this Kavanaugh assassination all the way back to the very night of the election, I think it took the left a year to accept the fact that Donald Trump had been elected. A year. And then I think they realized that the reason Trump was elected was Hillary said it's because of fake news, but the reason that Trump was elected was because some news did get out. Some news about the server did get out. Some pictures of Hillary not being able to focus, stumbling, falling down into a car, they got out. Uh, Enough truth got out so that the American people, like I like to say, had the audacity to get up on their hind legs and defy their Democratic masters who had already told them who was going to win and why. And so I think watching what the left has done since the election of Donald Trump, my personal feeling is that the shadow banning and all of these other ways of just closing down Twitter accounts and stuff, I'm quite convinced that after Donald Trump was elected, the left decided that, okay, we are never going to allow anyone to have any influence of any magnitude that's not on board the Marx train. So we see things like these algorithms on Facebook and YouTube. I have on YouTube almost 110,000 subscribers, and sometimes we'll see videos that get 3,000-4,000 views. And the reason we see that is not because 107,000 people saw it and decided not to click on it. It's that 107,000 people never got the news, which is why that little bell up there is so important, by the way. That's why I call it the Liberty Bell on YouTube, because it goes ding when there's new content. So subscribe if you haven't. But what the suppression does, this mathematical suppression, when Prager University sued Google and Facebook and basically said they've done the math, and Prager University said that of all the people that signed up to watch Prager University videos, I like them, I want to see more videos. Of that pool of people, which was a couple million, the actual videos got to 2% of them. 2%. And I think the left is just basically, they're just got their gloves up and they're taking whatever licks they're going to take financially, or maybe they have to go spend some time in front of Ted Cruz in Congress, and they're going to take their licks and they're going to just keep on coming in. And then finally, they're going to be able to do what they can to continue to destroy any dissenting viewpoint. And in the future, they'll have the entire podium to themselves, which is what they absolutely have to have, which is why there's never been any question about the fact that it's conservatives that are ready to debate and liberals that aren't. It's conservatives that are listening to speakers they don't agree with, and it's the progressives who are burning down universities because a 25-year-old gay man may come in and say something about feminism that they don't like. So we're going to have to burn the school down, and we're going to have to block him and make sure that he doesn't ever get a chance to eat a decent lunch. And we're going to make sure that what most importantly is that we don't hear anything coming into these young years that disagrees with the party line as issued from the virtual Kremlin, which exists in, staff rooms and lounges in colleges all around the country.
Well, Bill, let's stipulate that there is an imbalance. Okay, I'm not going to argue that point, although I'm sure that the people on the other side would argue that point. But let's stipulate,
I bet they wouldn't.
Let's stipulate that there is an imbalance and that it happens more on the Democratic side. What do you make of this idea of the paradox of people on both sides, whichever side? Let's say it's a small percentage of Republicans and a huge percentage of Democrats. But what do you make of this paradox of people saying, I don't like the anger, I don't like the division, and those weasels on the other side, I just hate them. That this balance of people saying on the one hand, I want peace, I want compromise. On the other hand, saying, well, not with those losers.
I feel this way myself, and you feel this way yourself. And I'm sure virtually every American watching this video right now feels that way too. They don't like it, they're sick of it, and they want it to stop. But at the same time, they're not. I just keep coming back to this, and if it wasn't true, I'd feel differently, and I would have a different opinion on it. But when I see the difference in strategies on both sides, Scott, I don't see, and I mean looking back 20, 30 years or 40 years even, I don't see the kind of character assassination attempts that were made on Thomas Sowell and Clarence Thomas and Kavanaugh and and Sarah Palin. I don't see that. I don't. So
are you saying that the people on the left actually like the anger and they're lying to pollsters when they say they don't like the anger and division and they really want compromise?
No, I'm not saying they're lying to pollsters. I'm saying that the reason for these divisions is largely due to what we consider to be unethical behavior on the part of the left, and the fruit of that unethical behavior is to portray us as evil. And while they continue to portray us as evil, the left will say we'd like to have a united America, but what they're really saying is they'd like to have a united America without those Republican savages. And what we're saying is we'd like to have a united America without these weenies telling us what to do. And this leads me to an unpleasant conclusion. And my conclusion is this, that somewhere in the last 30 years or so, once the left really started to get power in universities and then journalism schools, that the giant tree trunk of our shared American heritage split. It forked. And these two branches are growing further and further apart every day. And we both claim to be descended from the same trunk, and we are. But looking across at what the other side has become, we like it less and less. So I asked myself, what compromises would I be willing to make, for the left? And I realized one of the compromises is that I don't talk politics in front of progressives. I don't. Liberals or progressives, I will not talk politics. And they have to poke me for at least 15 minutes before I come back. And when I come back, it's pretty devastating because it's what I do for a living. But I don't find that to be the case on their side. And so I think what we've got here is we've got a case where both parties want to make a deal, but both parties have fundamental deal-breaking conditions that the other side simply can't accept.
Great way to sum it up. If you like what you're hearing here on Bill Whittle Now, please become part of the team that are citizen producers at BillWhittle.com. You can join there on a monthly basis and become part of the heart and soul of this operation. But at the very minimum, as Bill suggested earlier, why don't you click that notification button on YouTube to make sure you don't miss a single one of these videos. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.